Hello everyone, very good evening to all. So far now we have already discussed about the socio-cultural and political context in which very powerful and influencing media effect theories have evolved over the years. So I would like to discuss in this video particularly the magic bullet or the hypodermic needle theory, which is one of the media effect theories and which has always remained one of the most powerful, even though it got discarded in its time, but it has also got its prominence during its time. And even if you uh, if you go to study deeply about this theory, you will also get its relevance even today in one way or the other. So let's try to find out what has remained one of the most popular element about this theory and how has it got its name. Let's get started with this video first. It's very important to remind you people about the journey that I discussed in my earlier video, from human existence to the human behavior, because it's very important to know where that journey led us to. That journey led us to a stage where people became anonymous to each other because they started to shift from one pattern of society to the other, from traditional form to the to the industrial setting where families were breaking down, where no more members started to live around or together, so they were separated. So the individuals, they, or the entire society, individuals, the society was comprised of the individuals who were living separately, who were not known to each other. They were very much anonymous to each other. There were more strangers. There were, and how that anonymity that has led to the situation of anomie, where they started not to care for each other. So they become selfish. They become they were very self-interested and they become selfish. But it was difficult for them to to live in that way, because they had to trust on someone. They had to depend on someone in order to share their, or in order to gratify their needs, right? So in that way they finally came to decide that okay, they will depend on the media. So there was this increasing dependence on media. Then it started, right? Increasingly people were, they were starting to depend on the media, on the media messages. They were keeping their faith, their trust on the media now. So by then the print media was very popular and powerful. And by the beginning of the 20th century, the new mass media, radio and the television, were just emerging. They were emerging. So radio, television, they were even more powerful than they you know uh, ended with more powerful effect upon the audiences than the newspaper, even when they emerged in the beginning of the 20th century. There were several examples that you will find in several sources in YouTube. Also, there are so many videos. You'll find it very interesting to understand how this bullet theory has got its name and how it has got evolved over the years, with the influence that the mass media was creating upon the audiences. So audiences' opinion were heavily influenced by the mass media by then, and they were also controlled. Their changes, their attitudes and behaviors were changed very easily by the influence of the mass media by then. So let me also remind you that it was during that time that world it was also the time of the World War. So even how this media, mass media, played a role in creating a propaganda during the World War. I will also discuss on that. We have one slide on that. But let's try to find out how different audiences, is, or was there any negative impact about this influence, direct influence of mass media upon the audiences. So people of all ages were uniformly affected for attaining to the mass media messages. But uh, especially the parents, they were started to fear of losing moralities. They were started to fear of their children, because they were also getting more into the mass media messages. They were also very seriously consuming the mass media messages by then. And there was this, uh, there has always been a contest between the religious belief and the scientific things. So the morality somewhere was in a question, and the morality, the fear that the moral standard might get lost due to the uh, increasingly consumption increased consumption of mass media messages by the children. And uh, they started to believe that attaining to these mass media messages may change the individual's behavior, may change, or may tend or may lead some individual to accept some of the social behaviors which are not acceptable as part of societal norms of that period of during that time. So this was the hindrance for them. This was the negative influence, and these were the controversies that were going on during the time when mass media started to create an influence upon the people of all ages during that time. So it was about mimicking the mass media messages. So people started to believe that mass media, by that time, the messages that they were transmitting, they had that power to stimulate each individual, even though for a short term, or even though for a short period. So it was just like people were so much into the message that they started to mimic the character in the television, or the character in the radio that they heard of the message being transmitted by the character portrayed in the mass media. So it was very difficult for the audience during that time, in order to understand the mass media messages from their own perspective. So it has always been a perspective of the mass media. It has always been, the world has been transmitted to them from the eyes of the mass media to the people. So we should also remember that it was during that was the time when World War was also going on, and how this mass media has also played a big role in creating a propaganda during the war. So how it had supported the war, how it had created an opinion among the people that how winning a war is most important thing, how different messages supporting war and you know creating an opposition for one another was the primary role of the mass media by then. And it was said, or it was believed by many scholars during that time, that it was mass media through which all these propagandas were played. It was propaganda. It was believed to be propaganda because for some interest of the people in power, they were spreading those messages in order to influence the general public. And this is how mass media during that time, it has also created so many propagandas during the war, in both ways, I mean supporting the war and then creating a hatred for the opposition, and how feeling uh, infusing into the minds and heart of the people that supporting the war is a symbol of patriotism, and all these kind of messages were spread by the mass media during that time. So the very basic element that this particular theory, uh, by which this theory has become so popular and has got or has gained its prominence during its time, was about its direct, powerful, immediate and universal effect that it has upon the audiences. So I have a short a video clip of 1.5 or 2 minutes, I think, from a movie. So it will demonstrate how media can create a direct, powerful, immediate, and universal effect on its audiences. Let's try to find out.
Crime in the street. All I know is
the Magic Bullet, privately run. So they were
the inflation and the Russians and the crime.
From a 1976 film called Network, made by Sidney Lumet. So let's take a look.
I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. So, I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. I want you to get up right now. Get up, go to your windows, open them, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. Things have got to change.
How many stations does this go out
live? You've got to get mad.
67.
Say,
I know it goes to Louisville and Atlanta.
I'm not going to take this anymore. Then we'll figure out what to do about the depression and the inflation and the oil crisis. But first, get up out of your chairs, open the window, stick your head out and yell, and say, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Who are you talking to, Herb?
CGG, Atlanta.
Are they yelling in Atlanta, Herb?
Are they yelling in Atlanta, Ted?
But first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
They're yelling in Baton Rouge.
Get up out of your...
Son of a bitch! We struck the mother lode!
Stick your head out of the window, open it, and stick your head out and keep yelling and yell, I'm as mad as hell. I'm not going to take this anymore. Just get up from your chairs right now. Go to
Where
the
you
window.
going? I wanna see if
Everybody
anybody's
just go to
yelling.
the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell and keep yelling.
I'm mad as hell! I'm not gonna take it anymore! I'm mad as hell and I'm not gonna take it anymore! I'm mad as hell! I'm mad as hell! I'm mad as hell! I'm not gonna take this anymore!
So now,
So this is how, mass media messages can create a direct, powerful, immediate, and universal effect upon the audiences. So it's not like that the effect will have only on one member of the people of the public, but it will create a same influence on each and every one of that group. So this is what, this was the basic characteristic of this theory, magic bullet theory. You will understand it more, even more in my following slides. Got its name from the bullet. But before that, let's also try to understand that who was the person behind this theory, who actually proposed that this can be brought, or this can be shaped into a theory where he found that how it affect the audiences so directly, so immediately, and so universally, right? So it was the Harold Laswell. He was an American political scientist and communication theorist who wrote this very popular book. Later it became very popular, Propaganda Technique in the World War, and it was written in 1927. So there he, in that book he cited one example of radio broadcast of the War of the World. It was very similar to what Orson Welles. It was adopted from a novel by H.G. Wells, The War of the Worlds, and how in that broadcast it was the information was transmitted that Earth was being invaded by the Martians, and how that message got sparked, how that message impacted, or how that message influenced all the audiences equally in a universal effect was seen there. So it also sparked very widespread panic throughout the country. Later on, it was found that this was a false, this was a false story, or it was not a real news report, or not a real event, but the radio person who was narrating that story, or who was transmitting that information, he just narrated that just for fun, or what that was found later on. Or if you try to study Harold Laswell and his book Propaganda Technique in the World War, you will come to know about that very briefly, even more in detail later. So he was the person behind this particular theory, Harold Laswell. And later he also proposed this theory and wanted to coin this theory by giving it to the name of a bullet, because he felt that it should be given into that name, because the media message that influenced the people uniformly and directly and immediately, it just get influenced just like a bullet. Because and where he said that media message is like a bullet which penetrate into the consciousness of everyone, into the hearts and the minds of everyone. So that's why he came up with this term that let this theory be called as magic bullet theory, where the bullet is the media message, where the gun is the the media channel, and how it get penetrated into the hearts and minds of the people. So it has that everlasting effect like the bullet. The media messages of mass media, it has very powerful influence upon the audience, just like the powerful impact that a bullet pierced into the body of any individual. So yeah, I think this was what about the magic bullet theory or hypodermic needle theory. So for today, I think I'll end here, but I'll come again with another video on different media effect theories. Thank you.